welcome to Tanakh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Controversial Issues with Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Today we're going to be discussing what does the Bible say about drinking or hunting or even fishing. Rabbi Chaim Coffman, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Pleasure to be here as always.
Great. Yep, this is going to be a, how do I say this? I won't be giving out my email address during this show, or
no one can call in.
I'll be sure to put your email address and phone number everywhere, so everybody knows exactly who to call after the show.
One of my students said, if any class you want to come to, you want to get ticked off, this is the one.
Oh wow! Did he? Dang.
This is the one. That was not a paid advertisement.
Right. That's funny. Well, here we go. So that's it. So I don't know what order you want to cover it in. I would say I don't want people to think that this show is about doing all three at the same time, or even two at the same time, but just each individual item. Of course, fishing, hunting, and also we threw drinking in there because it's also can be a taboo conversation in a lot of people's minds. So so there we go. So why don't we take it off?
Okay, so I guess we'll start with hunting. Start with hunting and fishing. When you think about hunting, in the Bible, who do we think about? We think about good old Uncle Esau.
That's right.
So
that's
it tells
right.
us, Genesis chapter 25, verse 27, Esau was a hunter, man of the field, and who was Yaakov? He, was a dweller of tents. He learned Esau was a hunter, but we also know by Nimrod, right? Famous Nimrod also was a hunter. Right, so if you're going to be a hunter, one of the commentaries is going to say, well, if you look at all the people, who do you want to be like? You want to be like Nimrod? You want to be like, you want to be like Esau? That's what they, that's what they did, right? So not someone you want to, exactly be like. So whatever, we'll get there. So we know, or if you don't know, you'll know now, that animals are given to us for us to use, right? We're allowed to use them. We're not allowed to abuse them, right? So we're allowed to eat them, even though the vegans are going to be very happy here, because really, we shouldn't have been allowed to eat animals, right? Torah tells us, Genesis chapter 9, verse 3, that every moving thing that lives shall be meat for you, green herb I have given you, right? So we'll see that, when it comes to this, that we're allowed to eat meat. Right after the flood, we are, before the flood, seemingly we should all been, vegetarian. So people say, but before the flood, we see that meat was forbidden. Okay, what happened? So after the flood, we see that we went down tremendously, right? Tremendously in spiritual terms. So therefore, God allowed us to eat meat anyway. But really, meat should have been forbidden. Now, we find Adam, we mentioned, was not allowed to eat meat. As you see, that he was instructed of all the trees of the garden. That's Genesis chapter 2, verse 16, and also chapter 1, verse 29. Not allowed to eat animals, says the Sefer HaIkarim. Explains that why wasn't he allowed to eat animals is going to be a common theme. And that is because it's cruel. Now, even though ritual slaughter is probably the least cruel of any slaughtering, that's out there, because the knife goes in very, very sharp, goes in the trachea and the windpipe, so the animal dies straight away, right? But still, right, the Sefer HaIkarim says that Adam wasn't permitted to eat meat. Why not? Because it's cruel, right? It was considered cruel only for the fact that we mentioned by Noah, right? Genesis chapter 6, verse 11 and 12, that the Torah says all flesh had corrupted its ways upon the land. So that being the case, so then we're all messed up anyway. So why can't we eat animals, right? It should be permitted, and it is, it is permitted. There is a prohibition as well, even for non-Jews, what we call eating a limb from a live animal, or what we call Ever Min HaChai. So killing an animal properly, right, is not considered cruel. Right, in that sense, it's not considered cruel because it's minimal amount of. There's another issue, right? There are two issues really when we speak about hunting in general. One is going to be Tsar Baal Chaim, right? That is cruelty to animals. And that, Rabbi Chaim, is a Torah prohibition. So we're not allowed to do anything that's going to be cruel to an animal unless it's for our usage. Now, it doesn't mean, let's say, are we allowed to use animals for scientific experimentation, i.e. to find a cure for a disease? That we're allowed to do. That's not called cruelty, right? It has a purpose. So animals are allowed to be used for a purpose. If there is no purpose and you're just, in general abusing them or cruel, that is going to be forbidden. The Medrash tells us could be the reason Moshe Rabbeinu was chosen as the leader of the Jewish people, because he had a deep compassion for animals, for sheep, right? Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu was a shepherd. Now, we'll take it even one step further in Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, 223, Halacha 6 in Orach Chaim, where it talks about the laws of Shabbos, the laws of prayer, everyday activities. Says it's customary over there. It says it's customary to congratulate somebody who wears new clothing with a blessing. What's the blessing? The blessing is you shall wear them out and renew them. Right? But then he cites Rabbeinu Yerucham. Rabbeinu Yerucham says, but it shouldn't be used for shoes. Shouldn't make this blessing for shoes or any other item made of animal hides. Why not? Because it implies that another animal is going to be needed to be killed for this garment, right? So all the PETA activists going to say, yeah, don't kill them. Don't kill these animals for your fur coat. Forget it. Should be forbidden. But making that blessing, Rabbi Yerucham says, you shouldn't say on certain things, because, again, that's going to imply you're going to need another animal to be killed, another garment to be made. As King David says in Psalms chapter 145, verse 9, that his mercy is upon all his creatures. Now, even if there's mercy, doesn't mean, I'm not allowed to have, a steak, or a hamburger. Mercy doesn't mean they shouldn't be killed, right? As long as we're using them for the right, for the right things, for our usage. If it's not for our usage, or it's in a way where it's going to abuse them, that you're not allowed to do. So just as a short side point, in Switzerland, many years ago, 50, 60 years ago, there was a decree against ritual slaughter. And they would allow ritual slaughter if they stun the animal first. In other words, if they stun the animal first, they give it a little bit of juice, at least enough juice that, it's going to stun it so it's not going to die. So the question is, are you allowed to kill the animal afterwards? Are you allowed to ritually slaughter it afterwards? So the 3-day age, Rabbi Chaim Weinberg, may his name be blessed, wrote a whole response on this, and it comes out that even if they don't give the animal a lot of juice, some of the limbs inside get fried. Right? They get fried, which would make it into a treifa, make it in, that the animal wouldn't live, for more than a year. Let's say something happens to the kidney, one of the stomachs, gets a hole in the brain, or something like that, right? So the question posed was, well, would I be allowed to do that? So the whole thing also about cruelty. Why isn't that cruel? You stun the animal, right? You stun the animal, you see the thing shake. I mean, I can't imagine anything more cruel than that. Okay, they're not killing it, not giving it enough juice to kill it, but you see that animal getting fried, and then all of a sudden you come in and kill the animal, right? So his main question was, what does it do to the inner limbs, right? Does that disqualify it, or not? So that was one, just a side point. In the Note of Yehuda, we're going to see, they wrote 150 years ago, 200 years ago, emphasized this need for compassion. But the Ramah says, Rabbi Moshe says over there in the Shulchan Aruch, he says, even though this is a weak reason, I mean, we have to show compassion, that's true, but it's not strong enough to say this should be forbidden. But nonetheless, says the Ramah over there that you shouldn't say this blessing, right? Even though, in my language in Boston, we say, come on, that's like a wussy answer. Like, so, because you're going to have to kill another animal and you're going to use the skin, I shouldn't make the blessing. The animal's used for, for whatever I want to use it for, as long as I don't abuse it. I can't have a coat. I can't have leather shoes. like what's the issue? So he says it's a little bit of a wimpy answer, my language, but he says nonetheless, it's not enough, not to make the blessing. So let's get to hunting. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be excited about this. Now, hunting in general is not necessarily a Jewish practice, but we definitely find reference to it, right? King David himself said, Psalms chapter 1, verse 1, he said, "Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers." Now, sitting in the company of mockers, right, is an interesting statement. What does it mean? So it means that the Talmud explains, it means that you're not allowed to walk to the theaters and circuses of idolaters, right? We spoke about this, about sports, right? Going to stadiums, right? In the way that sinners take, right? You shouldn't stand in a kangion. What's a kangion? It's a place where they hunt animals by means of dogs, right? Dogs chase them, they hunt them, all for the sake of merriness and frivolity, right? So according to that, the Talmud says you can't do this, you can't go to a stadium. This is what they're doing, right? They're chasing after animals, etc. And whatever, going sporting events, the whole different thing, right? But it just comes in here also. It's all for the sake of merriness and frivolity. Comes along with Moshe Isulis in TORAH 316, Halacha 2, the laws of Shabbos. And he says regarding to Shabbos, hunting might be forbidden even on weekdays, right? There's a question, am I allowed to set out traps to trap animals on Shabbos? So he adds over there, it shouldn't be just a question on Shabbos, it's a question on weekdays, right? Why is it a question on weekdays? Because of the verse of King David. It's going to bring you to this case of Moshe Vleitzim, right? What we said before, you're going to be in accompaniment, of these scoffers, right? As we, are the company of mockers, they're scoffers, right? So that would be forbidden even during the week. So you're telling me it should be forbidden on Shabbos. Why just Shabbos? It should be forbidden during the week also. According to this, it would seem that there's a negative element, tremendously negative element of frivolity. Now, technically speaking, I would say, okay, if that's the problem, is there any moral issue? Right? Is there any, we'll get to cruelty and whatever, but a moral issue, right? The Ramah, Moshe Isulis over there does not say it's a moral issue. He said it's an element of frivolity. So it could be a moral issue. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But the TORAH Chaim Kadosh, one of the great commentators on the Torah, about 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, in Book of Leviticus, chapter 17, verse 11, says, humanity was given permission to kill animals only for the sake of human consumption and use. Now, if it's not used for that, then according to him, it should be forbidden. Now, that's not going to be the only reason, right? This won't be the only reason to say that a person shouldn't hunt. There are a number of reasons here, but it's enough of a warning against harming animals under inappropriate circumstances. Now, I have to define what's inappropriate. Can I skin animals for the sake of my fur hat, right? For the sake of a fedora. You got all these Hasidim, that wear fedora hats. You're skinning the animals. That not for a purpose? Well, again, the PETA activists will say no. Use something else. Use something synthetic, right? But the question is that inappropriate, right? Even if you're going to use the skin, I should be allowed to use the skin, right? But the general nature of hunting in general is you see an animal as the object of a cruel sport, right? It gets trapped, it gets run after. You're certainly not doing it any great shake, scaring the wits out of it also. That's not a human need, right? We're allowed to use animals for their flesh. We're allowed to eat them. We're allowed to use their skin, right? But if there's no human need, you're going to say, well, I enjoy it. It's therapeutic, right? Maybe fishing, you'll get away with that, right? We'll see by fishing. Maybe fishing, you'll get away with that. You're not going to get away with that by hunting. So according to TORAH Chaim, that would be forbidden. Now, when did this question come up? It's an interesting thing. This question came up of the 17th century, right? And it came up also in Jewish response to literature about the 18th century also, because you had social status of Jews who were, they were rising, they were landowners, etc. So it got prohibited for a number of reasons. One of the first to address it was Rabbi Shaul Mortira. He writes in Giva Shaul, Parshas Vayeshev, and he says that it's forbidden on the count of cruelty. So what does he say? He says hunting involves letting dogs loose mercilessly on these animals, trapping them, killing them, right? There should be no permissibility at all. You're scaring them, it's cruel, dogs running after them, it's merciless, right? That's it. Should be forbidden. Not only that, so great is the Torah, is the prohibition. Torah instructs us to cover the blood of any animal or bird after their slaughter. After ritual slaughter, right? You still have to show compassion. You cover the blood, right? So here you're gonna say, what are we gonna say? It's innocent blood being shed. The animals that are being slaughtered for food consumption, that's not innocent, right? That's not for no reason. We need shish kebab. We need steaks. We need hamburgers. Come on, that's a real need. One of the great leaders in Italy, 18th century, Reb Shimshon Morfogro, he wrote in Shemesh Shadaka. He writes similar thing. He says it takes up the cruel manner of good old Uncle Esav, and also transgresses the prohibition of cruelty to animals, because that's certainly the animal, the animal's going to suffer. Now, the most famous response, right, is from the Noda B'Yehuda, and that was again about 150 years ago. And he was asked the following question: that about hunting as a pastime for a Jew who became a landowner. Now, he said there should be a number of reasons why it's forbidden. One should be about tashchis, wastefulness. You're not doing it to eat it, right? You're going to put it, on your mantle. Get it stuffed, stick the deer head right there. It's for fun. That's the only reason. So it's wastefulness. It's forbidden to waste food, right? You're not allowed to just waste food, right? Waste animals, same thing. Why should that be? Why should that be permitted? Right? There's another prohibition we mentioned before, seemingly a Torah prohibition, and that is Sar Baal Chaim, causing it pain. Right? Not only is it cruel, you're causing it pain. And those two reasons enough, says the Noda B'Yehuda, right, should be enough to forbid it. But that wasn't the reason. Right? When it came to suffering the animals, Noda B'Yehuda says killing animals you're not considered causing suffering. Right? When are you causing it suffering? When it's alive, right? That's why even a non-Jew not allowed to rip a limb off an animal, right? Certainly rip a limb off an animal and eat it, right? That is also seemingly cruelty, but you're not allowed, to pull it apart or whatever, make it suffer while it's alive. Now, it's a little bit of a novelty. You're going to say, okay, when it's alive, but it's dead, right? You're doing it, you're going to kill it, right? Nonetheless, the hunt itself, right? We're talking about the hunt itself before the animal is killed, right? That for sure, according to everybody, is going to cause the animal pain and suffering. But the Noda B'Yehuda over there held that the hunt is a process of killing, right? That's what he was talking about, right? That seems to be what he was talking about. Now, what about needless destruction, right? So he explained that only applies to property that belongs to someone. You're not allowed to just trash someone's property. If you're killing an animal, right, this animal is hefker, right? It's ownerless. It's a wild animal. So therefore, needless destruction doesn't belong to anyone. When we talk about destruction, it has to be owned by somebody. If it's not owned by anybody, what's the issue? Right? Okay, so you're killing an animal that doesn't belong to anyone. Right? That shouldn't be a problem. Also, if there's no benefit to man as a result of this destruction. Here, what could the hunter use it for? If he's not going to eat it, he could use it for the skins, right? He could use it for other things. So according to Noda B'Yehuda, he knocks off that also. It says that shouldn't fall in the category, should not be fall in the category of useless destruction. But nonetheless, he says that, maybe you're going to tell me it's forbidden because it's a custom, right? It's a custom. We don't do it, right? He didn't want to necessarily say that either, right? If the practice is uncommon. Nonetheless, what does it know to you to come out with? He says that, the question doesn't get off the ground. He said, the only people I know in the Torah itself that are hunters are Nimrod and Esav. Nimrod and Esav did not go in the way of the children of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Right? So therefore, he concludes and he says that how can a Jew actively kill an animal and he's only motivated by one thing? He's enjoying himself. Right? Even if you tell me he's going to do it for the skins or, whatever, and it's not an act of cruelty, and the other thing doesn't apply, that it's a waste. Nonetheless, why is he doing it? Right? He's doing it because he enjoys it. Right? It's fun. Right? He enjoys it. Now, what about, then the Northern Buddha answers, asks, what about hunting for a living? What if a person's a fisherman? Right? We'll get to fish in a second. What about being a fisherman? What about, for a living? Does that apply? So if a person needs this for his living, there's no issue of cruelty. Right? When it comes to animals and birds in general, they're slaughtered. Right? They're for human consumption. If they're slaughtered, so you have to catch them somehow, or you have to get them somehow, that's for our benefit. So if it's for our benefit, we're going to have some nice, nice steaks or whatever, then that shouldn't be a problem. Right? But there's a difference between the slaughter of a kosher animal, in order that you're going to eat the meat, and what about non-kosher animals to make a living? What about if you kill non-kosher animals, to make a living? You're going to sell their skins or whatever. So again, if the main intention is not to make a living, then it's cruel. But even if you use the animals to make a living, you can't do it in a cruel way. Right? That's why the novelty of the question of zapping an animal, zapping an animal before ritually slaughtering it, there's a mind-boggling thing. I mean, I would have said straight away, I have to go back and look at that response, but I would have said straight away, it's an act of cruelty. Why would you think it would be permissible? Right? If it's, if you're zapping it, right? But the answer was, you're not killing it, right? You're certainly not killing it. Okay. You're zapping it. The question was, what does it do? What is the electric, the electric shock? What does it do to the animal? Right. And that was the base of most of his response, because it's not clear what it does inside the body. And it could certainly make that animal a treifa, and therefore we wouldn't be allowed to eat it anyway. So, and the Northern Buddha then says that it's forbidden to hunt, right? Because you have to go in the forest. You go in the forest, what could happen? Dangerous. You know what goes on there, right? It could be dangerous also. Now, you're allowed to endanger yourself a little bit, to some extent, to make a living. You see, people go up on, people are, let's say, electricians, they have to go onto electric poles or whatever, go on ladders, different things. There could be things that a person could do, right? We mentioned this, I think we mentioned this last week also, that a person can do certain things that might be a little bit of a danger, but for the sake of his living, and he understands the danger, it would be permissible, right? But again, if it's only out of his heart's desire, right? My Boston accent there, his heart's desire to go to a place where animals are wild together, and you place yourself in danger, there's no mitzvah, right? It's definitely no mitzvah in doing so. So basically, you got a number of reasons why it should be forbidden, right? Again, it's cruel. One is definitely cruel. One is, you're doing things that, scoffers do, or, a group of scoffers do. And it's not a Jewish thing, right? If you have no purpose in it, you're not doing it for the skins, you're just doing it for the sake of sport, then 100%, that's going to be forbidden. So similarly across the board, depending on which way you want to go, right? Everyone's going to hold that it's definitely a cruel thing, and certainly shouldn't be done. Only question is, what about making a living? Am I allowed to make a living from doing that? And the answer is yes, as long as you're not doing it in a cruel way, right? So that I think deals with hunting. Now there's a question about fishing. Now, when I thought about this before, I would say fishing, fishing's it's a totally different thing. I don't think it would, come in, even dawn on us. They say, oh, yeah, someone goes fishing. You tell me most people just, people enjoy it. Maybe it's forbidden because of that. People enjoy it. Or, I wouldn't necessarily see it as as a bloodthirsty type of thing. Hunting for sure is, right? Fishing, you got plenty of people fish. They enjoy it. They relax. The question though is, when it comes to fish, is it considered tzar b'chaim? Is it considered, an act of cruelty? You're causing pain over here, right? So it says in the Siach Yitzchak, he brings down that you're allowed to take off fish's scales while the fish is still alive, because we don't find any prohibition in that. But that's not the same as plucking feathers from a goose, right? When you pluck it from a goose, that's a lot more painful. I'll take his word for it, right? It's a lot more painful, to the goose than taking the scales off the fish. So that wouldn't apply to the fish. Also, a person can't eat a live fish. Now, the Shulchan Aruch says in Yeridea, talks about this. It says you're not allowed to eat a live fish. Jews are not allowed to eat a live fish because the prohibition of Baal Teshachsu. Baal Teshachsu means it's disgusting, right? It's something disgusting. Another thing that comes underneath this category, just as a side point of a person has to go to the bathroom. You don't wait. You go as quick as possible, and if you don't, you hold it in or whatever, or let's say you're busy doing something, then you go, whatever, you could transgress the Torah prohibition of Baal Teshachsu will be considered, disgusting. What they say, when you gotta go, you gotta go. So, take care of it as quickly as possible. Now, what about this idea of cruelty to fish? I take the fish out, I throw them on the boat, whatever dries up, I'm allowed to do that, right? Cruelty does not apply to fish. What it applies to is like eating a limb from a live animal. That's painful, right? You're causing pain to the animal, right? But if I take the fish out, where's the pain? It's going to dry up, right? I might say, well, that's also painful, but right, according to this, it should be okay, right? But then others want to say that eating a limb from a live animal, maybe it only applies to a big animal. It doesn't apply to a baby animal, especially if the mother's been slaughtered. When it had a fetus inside, so you can eat the animal anyway. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need ritual slaughter. Any case, that's a different thing. So over here, the prohibition of cruelty, even by fish, there's a question. I'm not going to say across the board there's no cruelty to a fish, right? You take the fish in, you bang it over the head, right? There's no ritual slaughter by a fish. So I can kill it any way. But again, that there is somewhat of a concern, at least a doubt, that a person shouldn't fish, right? If there's no need or desire. Now, what happens? Let's say you enjoy fishing, and you're not going to eat it. Even if you're going to do it for eating purposes, fine, right? There wouldn't be any issue. If you're not going to do it for eating purposes, you're going to do it for fun. What would happen if I take the fish? Okay, I catch this nice fish. Then I say, you know what? I'm going to let it go. I throw it back in. Does that solve the problem? Now I would probably say no, because what happens? Because when you take this fish out, how did the fish come? Right? It came, it jumped on the hook. Right? Its mouth in the hook. Its mouth's probably all bloody. Right? Because of this metal hook, or whatever. So even if you return it afterwards, still would seem to be, a little bit cruel, even if you don't eat it and it doesn't die. So, so if we see by those rabbinical authorities, speaking about hunting, which fuels a person's cruelty, most people, you'll say, well, I enjoy it. That's probably true, right? That there's a big thrill, in going out, and I can't say I've ever done it, right? But, going out and taking the dogs and, whatever, right? People will say, it's a great joy, but what it does is that it's cruel. You're running at, you're scaring these animals, you're running after them, right? It's a total act of cruelty. And what it does, as some of the rabbinical authorities say, it fuels a person's cruelty. Now, if a person goes fishing, no one in their right mind is going to say, yeah, I am so cruel. I'm getting more cruel by fishing. It doesn't apply, right? That shouldn't apply. Now, if someone goes fishing, let's say he goes fishing because he enjoys it, it's for something therapeutic or for medical reasons, right? Whatever he has to get out, fresh air, whatever, and that's what he does, and he relaxes, etc. Then it should be permitted, right? But certainly, if you're going to do that, if a person needs to do that, then the fish should be eaten, right? If you're going to do that to take away any question whatsoever, that you can say, oh, it's an act of cruelty, even if you throw the fish back in, right? At least there's a doubt. So to get out of that problem, you're doing it for therapeutic reasons. So in order to fulfill your obligation, according to everybody, so you eat it. You take the fish and you eat it, as long as it's a kosher fish, and a kosher fish will have two signs. It's got scales and it has fins. You'll never have a fish, as the Torah tells us, you'll never have a fish that has scales and it does not have fins, or vice versa. Right? And obviously Moshe Rabbeinu was not Dr. Doodle, so how would he know? Obviously because God told him. But you're never going to see an anomaly. If it's got scales, it's got fins. The question, if the scales disappear when it comes out of the water, or scales, there's a kingklip fish outside of South Africa where the scales are underneath the skin. You can't really see them, but if you scrape at them, you can see them. So there's a difference of opinion today among rabbinical authorities whether you're allowed to eat that fish or not, because some rabbinical authorities hold you have to see the scales. The scales have to be visible. If they're only visible because I have to scrape at the skin, then those aren't, they might be scales, but it doesn't fulfill this, it doesn't fulfill what the Torah says. So whatever the difference of opinion. So if there's a difference of opinion, I'm not getting king clip fish here anyway. Here in Israel, they don't sell it, so I don't have an issue, right? But a person lived in a place where they sell it, yeah, the difference of opinion whether it's going to be permissible. So I don't know. We got anybody left? Anyone still want to go hunt? Anyone? Yeah. So that's the issue. That's the issue about hunting. We should get into drinking. That's going to be even
a whole new show.
I don't know. Drinking's even a bigger issue. Yeah, right. So actually, Purim's coming up another 3 weeks or so. The only holiday that we have says, you should get rip roaring drunk, right? And you should drink. I mean, that is clarified. If a person, is only gonna, spew out garbage and, say things that they shouldn't say or do things that they shouldn't do, obviously for them, there's no mitzvah to drink, right? But drinking itself, is an interesting thing that you would think there should be more Jewish alcoholics. Why? Because at the start of any holiday, right? Shabbos, what does it start with? Kiddush, right? You make kiddush, make over wine. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to drink a lot, so to speak, but you can definitely drink wine. But we see, in the prophets, for instance, they certainly go all out condemning, drunkenness and wild revelry, right? Take a look at Isaiah chapter 5, verses 11 to 14, chapter 24, verse 9. There are a few examples of there that, chastises the people for, drinking in excess, right? But, when sacrifices were given, they were accompanied by wine libations. Shabbos comes in and Shabbos goes out drinking wine or grape juice, whatever, drinking wine. Passover Seder, drink 4 cups of wine. That's why I always say, since my cup is so big, on Passover, there's no problem. By the time we get to the 5th cup by Elijah the prophet, he's definitely there. I can tell you. I can give testimony. He's definitely there. So wine, definitely central component of Passover. Certainly by Purim, right? Certainly by Purim. That there's a mitzvah to drink. People, you don't need excuses to drink, to say l'chaim, someone got married, someone got engaged, something else happened, you wish someone l'chaim, to life. So what do you do? What do you do with booze? So you would think that, wow, if the prophets come out so strong against it, you see that there are a lot of things that we do that have to do with alcohol, right? The sacrifices, Shabbos, festivals, etc. But also King David says in Psalms chapter 104, verse 15, he says, wine also gladdens the heart of men. His son, King Solomon, Ecclesiastes, chapter 10, verse 19, wine gladdens life, right? It opens us up. I mean, okay, it depends how much you're going to drink, right? Certainly. And when it comes to holidays in general, right, as Talmud says, there's no true happiness without wine. So now the question is going to be, okay, there's a big difference if I have, if I drink, if I make Kiddush Friday night, Shabbos day by Havdalah after Shabbos, right? You make Kiddush or you make Havdalah. How much are you really drinking? I mean, you're not drinking 8 ounces. You'll drink enough, at least a cheekful, at least 3 or 4 ounces. Then you give to everyone else. You're going to have a little bit more, whatever. But you're not going to drink, you're not going to drink that much. So when you think about it, by the holidays, by Shabbos, the prophets Isaiah and others are not going to say, oh, he's going to fry. You're not going to say that, right? He's only drinking a little bit. He's a teetotaler. He only drinks Friday night, Shabbos day, as a little bit. That's it, right? 3, 4 fluid ounces. Could that lead to addiction? Depends how much you drink, how much you continue to drink. Could it lead to addiction? Again, it depends, right? It depends on that. I would think by Purim and Passover, it's worse, right? Since there's a mitzvah to drink, certainly on Purim. Again, there are limitations, right? Passover itself as well, you should drink wine, but if a person can't handle wine, right, you can drink grape juice. Men certainly should drink wine. Women can drink grape juice. That's not an issue, right? But that's about it. When else are you going to drink, that much in a relatively short amount of time? I mean, everyone will tell you how bad it is, right? How bad drinking, etc. You're gonna say, well, drugs also are bad, marijuana and these other things, but I would think in a certain way, drinking's not on the same level, right? Marijuana is illegal. I mean, some places it is legal. Fine, it's become legal, in certain places. Right? Alcohol, okay, you have to be a certain age. And so again, in theory, could that be abused? It could be abused. Now, I would think if that's the case and there's so much emphasis on drinking on Shabbos, and on the festivals and on Purim and on Passover, should be a lot more alcoholics amongst the Jews. Now, unfortunately, those statistics are rising, right? But they're rising because people have issues. When they have issues, that's what they do. So it doesn't matter if they're Orthodox Jews or not. They abuse it, but they can abuse it anyway, right? It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with okay. There's more access because there are more things going on. A person has a Kiddush. Synagogue has a Kiddush. There's going to be alcohol there, right? Can people get carried away? They can certainly be carried away. But the bottom line is, the more in tune a person is with the Torah itself and doing what the Torah wants, the less they're going to do this, right? Most Jews in general don't drink. I mean, a lot do, but most don't, right? Most don't, certainly not to the extent, what goes on in the secular world. I don't think there's anything to talk about. Yeah, the statistics are rising, right? The statistics are rising, but it's a lack in the person. It's not because Judaism emphasized you have to drink. Not true. But, there are plenty of people that drink very little, if any. And if they're going to drink wine on Shabbos, they're drinking the minimal amount. They're not going to drink anymore. And even between meat and fish, where you want to rinse out your mouth, because a Jew can't eat meat and fish together, right? It's considered a danger. Why? I don't know, but it's considered a danger. So you can wash out your mouth with bread, with soda. People use liquor, right? Wine, scotch, brandy, whatever, in order to do that. But you're not drinking, you're not having 8 shots. You're barely having 1 shot. So you're going to say, but that could lead to it. Maybe, right? Maybe a person will have more tolerance because, A, it's always around. B, they drink, they have the opportunity to drink more, so they build up a tolerance, whatever it could be, right? But again, a person who's going to get to that point, even if it's available, is their own issue. Whatever they're going through, it has nothing to do with, Judaism makes people drunks. It doesn't. right? Clearly it doesn't, right? A person has to use it for the right, for the right things, right? Now it's interesting. It's interesting. The Talmud tells us, "Nichnas yayin yoytze sod," right? When the wine goes in, secrets come out. That's why you never want me to drink or do anything after that, because I just get louder and louder. So certainly my family friends can attest to that. So, but what it does is allows the person's inner and guarded thoughts to come to the forefront. So certainly on Purim, where there's a mitzvah to drink, if a person knows that if they drink, now again, let me not necessarily be plastered, right? But if you drink and when you're under the influence, there are things that are going to come out of your mouth that should not, then you're not, then according to that, the halacha, you're not allowed to drink, right? But if the whole purpose, of drinking brings us to our innermost thoughts, and our innermost thoughts are trying to be close to God, and that's what we want. Yeah, okay. There's a little bit of levity. Certainly on Purim, it's a crazy day. It's sanctifying the physical, trying to reach high spiritual levels. It's like Yom Kippur, in a certain way, or it's considered even holier than Yom Kippur, right? According to many, right? Regardless of that, the question is that the more that goes in, so it should draw you closer, right? Your innermost thoughts are going to come out. Now, if you're talking about, if garbage comes out, and you're going to be speaking about all kinds of stupid things and things that are forbidden, in the Torah or whatever, yeah, that's forbidden, right? That's certainly you're not allowed to do, under any circumstances, right? But if the whole point is to draw ourselves close, right? And when a person's inebriated, you see either the best in them, or you see the worst. So you can see, sometimes on Purim, just people go beyond. They go well beyond what they're supposed to do. Yeah, there's a mitzvah to drink, because the whole salvation of the Jewish people came through a festive meal, right? With Achashverosh, with Mordechai, and with Esther, right? So therefore, we do just the opposite. She brought him there to get him killed. We celebrate that, we use that to celebrate, right? But yeah, you have to remember what you're doing it for. It's not just, it's the end of it's the end of the winter, Passover's coming, it's the end of the learning session, it's time to get rip-roaring drunk and have fun or whatever. Okay, there's a boundary, right? There's a boundary of how far that should go. Do people go beyond that boundary? Yes. Are they encouraged to? That depends, right? You're encouraged to have a good time, right? Purim is it's a great time. It's a crazy time, right? But it's a time to get so close to God. That's really the whole point is. But if people abuse it, which people do, I'm not going to say everybody does, but people do, okay, that's not the spirit of the day, right? So, to understand, the deeper thing, okay, it's it's a whole nother discussion, right? But the point is say, could someone become an alcoholic from that? I don't think so, right? Because even if you have, young teenagers, whatever. People say, you shouldn't give them to drink or whatever, but they drink anyway, right? They're going to feel it afterwards. It's not going to be such a pleasant feeling, right? If someone's like, busy throwing up or whatever, they'll get over it, right? So there's a whole question about that also. If someone comes to your house and they're collecting for their yeshiva or whatever, should you give them to drink if they're underage? So some people will swear and say, no, not allowed to give them the drink. Others will give them the drink because it's all part of the fun. It's all part of the days. Aren't you encouraging? It's one day of the year, right? They're not doing it all year round, right? They're hopefully, busy studying, learning, and upholding the world, right? But someone is not gonna get plastered, on that day and say, I'm gonna use this, for the rest because again, alcohol is a drug, right? So once you go down from that high, you gotta keep drinking more, and if you don't. To the ratio of water to alcohol, it's gonna affect you in a negative way. So, so in that sense, a person may say, well, that's encouraging. That's encouraging. You have a kiddush, and you have all this alcohol there. People come and drink. That's encouraging. Maybe it is, right? Maybe it is. But the vast majority of people there are not getting plastered. right? I would say 98% are not getting plastered. Maybe it's a little bit lower. So even some people that are going to drink and they're going to abuse or whatever, should we take it, should it be taken away for everybody? I don't know if it should be taken away from everyone, right? But some people say it's already there. It's already out there, right? It's already out there. It shouldn't be there. It should be dry. People should be able to enjoy themselves without it. I agree. But you're not going to forbid it. A person's going to make, a kiddush in the synagogue. Most likely it's going to be on wine. Could be on grape juice, but there'll be other things there. So, I definitely don't think that, just because it's there, person has to say, peer pressure, I'm gonna dive in. This is what I have to do. Unless there are other things going on. It could lead someone, in theory, right? It could lead someone to it. But for the vast majority, they're gonna go there. They're gonna go there anyway. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a kiddush or whatever. They'll just take it and use it anyway. Right, so that's a different thing. So using it for the right things and sanctifying the day, right, is a tremendous thing. So now it's interesting. There's an opinion that the Talmud says that the tree of knowledge that Adam and Eve ate from was a grapevine, right? According to Kabbalah, Noah after the flood, what did he plant? He planted a vineyard. What happened after he planted the vineyard? He got plastered, right? The whole question, like, what's he doing? If he's supposed to be so righteous, even though if it's only in his generation, how could he get plastered? Or look what happened to him, right? His son gets cursed because of it, right? So according to Kabbalah, it seems that he understood that what did Adam sin from? He sinned from a grapevine. So he says, I'm going to drink the grapevine and I'm going to fix up the sin of Adam and Eve and bring the world back. That's what we're trying to do. Bring the world back before Adam and Eve sinned. So if that's the case, okay, great. And other people tried and they also failed. But he failed. Right? He definitely failed. So over here, Adam and Eve eat from the forbidden fruits. He wanted to know evil from the inside. Right? In other words, he had evil from the outside as a foreign entity. Right? But he wanted actually to take it inside. So God called him a heretic. Why did God call him a heretic? God called him a heretic because he said, that's not what I created the world for. Right? But Adam understood, if I have evil inside of myself, and I sanctify it, and I do the right thing, and I don't go according to my evil inclination, well, guess what? I'm going to grow exponentially. And that's true, right? In other words, if your evil inclination is working 24/7, and it keeps coming and coming and coming, and you overcome it, that's an unbelievable thing, but it can also bring you down. It can also bring you down tremendous levels. So even if God would say, I agree, and I think that's the right thing, I didn't create the world for that, and the whole world changes, and that brought death, that brought death to the world. King Solomon in Proverbs, chapter 31, verse 6, he finds actually positive use for alcohol. He says, give someone a strong drink to one who is wasting away, and wine to the bitter of a soul. In other words, you can use it to cheer someone up. Now you're going to say, well, anytime someone's depressed, just drink a cup of wine? Maybe, right? I've heard and seen that people claim that you drink a cup of wine a day, it's good for the heart. Could be, right? Now simple explanation over there is that if a person's depressed, it's going to make him high. It's going to make him forget his sorrows, right? But you see something else. That someone's depressed, overwhelmed with his troubles. He's overcome by his situation, right? He's going to see, though, he's going to see, if he really analyzes, that they're external issues. He's got to deal with what he needs to deal with. He's going to say, but a person could drown himself in sorrow. You're right. Right? But obviously that's not going to be a way to clear a person's depression. He might have to be on Prozac. He might have to be on other things. Right? Maybe the person's got, chemical imbalance or, whatever. Right? I don't think anyone's going to say, yeah, a person's in a bad state, you have a bad day, kick off your feet, have a beer, have a cup of wine, just relax. But that can also get you in a bad habit, right? In other words, every time, something bad happens, or a person's depressed, whatever the case is, fix it, right? You numb it, right? But the problem's going to be is, it'll be constant. And if it's constant, then, a person's going to abuse it. So certainly in the eyes of the rabbis, they're going to see wine certainly a more positive force, than a negative force. That's why I don't see necessarily the Torah comes out, against it. It's, what does wine do? It brings out who we really are. And that might be pretty scary for some people, right? To bring the inner self, right? So if it's about self-expression, about inner self, that's not a bad thing. It's just that you can't abuse it, right? Other things don't bring that out as wine does. So in either case, the rabbis will tell us you use it for what you need it for, and that's it, right? Don't use it for other things. Don't experiment, whatever. It's a very, very powerful force. And if it's a powerful force, you have to know how to use it, right? There are a number of powerful forces a person has, right, inside them. You have to know how to handle them. You have to know how to harness them, right? Even if they're the most powerful force, doesn't matter, right? Wine, alcohol, God says, I want you to sanctify the day. I want you starting your holy days, with these, with this. So that's going to bring about an inner equilibrium, and it's not going to say, we're going to be unbridled. Person has a bottle of wine, right? So you have your Kiddush cup, you have a few other cups around you're going to give to people, right? So your Kiddush cup is, let's say, 6 ounces, 5 ounces, whatever it is. You're down and say, wow, this is great. I'm going to have another one. You know what? That's even better. I'm going to have a third cup before I have to wash my hands. Yeah, that's the problem, right? But in most houses I've ever been to, 99.9, 100% of the time, I've never seen it done. Okay, people take shots here and there, fine. But they're not getting plastered at the table. That's certainly the opposite of what you want to do. You're sanctifying the day, right? But wine in general brings out, it brings out the secrets. It brings out the inner self. So in and of itself, it's not a bad thing, just like anything else. The Ramban, Nachmanides says in Leviticus chapter 19, where the Torah says, you have to be holy because I am holy. The Ramban says, even though there are things that are permitted, right? I'm allowed to drink, I'm allowed to eat. Doesn't mean I'm allowed to be a glutton. Doesn't mean I'm allowed to be an alcoholic, right? That means I can use wine for whatever, I can use it. I can eat meat. Who says I have to eat it every day, right? If I eat too much, it's going to be bad for me, right? It's going to cause me all kinds of things. Alcohol is no different. God permits it, but you have to know how to use it, right? So even something that's permissible, it has to be restrained. It has to be harnessed, right? But wine's just an interesting thing in and of itself because of what it has the power to do. Other alcohol you take, you say you drink vodka, whatever, it's 40% proof. We're not talking about grain alcohol, right? 40% proof. Okay, that's going to throw you for a loop, depending on your tolerance. Wine's not going to do that, right? Even if wine's 11%, 13%, even, okay, it's going to take you a while. You have, a number of shots of vodka, it's 40%, that'll do it. That'll make your head spin. But alcohol has a different effect, right? Wine has a different effect. The Talmud does not say by alcohol that when it goes in, the secrets come out, right? And it only makes a statement about wine, right? Wine has that ability, but wine also is a positive thing. I mean, a lot of people don't drink wine, fine, whatever it is. And that element brings out the inner self, brings out who we really are, right? And again, that could either be good or bad. What is our inner element? What is our equilibrium? Where are we, right? And that's the whole thing about Purim, right? When a person drinks, you see what comes out. And if Torah ain't coming out, he's not quoting things left and right and doing things that are going to bring him closer to God, then that wine is poison, right? That wine, 100%, or alcohol, whatever it is, right? That 100% is going to be poison. But if it's used for the right, for the right reason, and it's not abused, just like anything else, it can be a beautiful thing. I've been by, a number of, poor meals where, you got grown men sitting there crying for the Beis Hamikdash, and rebuilding the temple. It's, a bunch of wusses. They're so sensitive. No, it's about being close to God. That's what, that's what wine does, right? It brings a person's innermost thoughts out. It's an unbelievable thing. Can it be abused? Yeah, it can be abused, right? But in the normal scheme of things, it never should, the way it should be used properly. So that's what I would say about wine and alcohol.
All right. Well, that sure gives us plenty to think about. I just heard my voice, so I could repeat. That's
Moonshine,
okay.
prohibition.
I won't tell you what I've got over. Never mind. This.
Yeah.
Remember, you can reach.
Doesn't mean you can't drink. You just have to know how. You just
Yeah,
have to,
right.
I definitely think people abuse it. No question about it. But,
Certainly, right.
But in general, you would think there'd be 10 times more alcoholics, within the Jewish world than there are.
Right. Yep, I hear you. All right, well, let's go wrap it up for us for today then. Rabbi, thanks for tuning in, but you had to be here. So thank you all for tuning in.
I had to be here.
Feel free to share the video. Got any complaints, take it to the complaint department. Rabbi Chaim Coffman. All right, we'll see you guys later.
That's it right here.
Shalom, shalom, everybody.
Shalom, shalom.
חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. אני אתה אתם תמיד תמיד כולם ביחד. חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד.